I remember the sound first. Not the scream. Not the sirens. Not even the crack of something hitting the floor. Just the low hum of the streetlight outside Ryan's apartment, flickering like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay alive. That's what my brain held onto. That stupid, broken light. Because everything else that night? It shattered too fast. Ryan had been my best friend since we were 10. The kind of friend who knew when you were lying before you even opened your mouth. The kind who showed up uninvited when things got bad, and somehow made them better just by being there. That night was supposed to be nothing. Just beers. A late game on TV. Complaining about life like we always did. I remember knocking twice before letting myself in. Doors open, he called out, voice a little off, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. I should have. The apartment smelled wrong. Not bad. Just different. Like something sharp had cut through the usual mix of takeout and cheap cologne. Ryan? I called, stepping inside. No answer. The TV was on. Volume low. Some sports channel flickering in the background, ignored. I took a few steps forward. That's when I saw him. He was on the floor. At first, my brain refused to process it. Like it was a trick of the light. Like he was just lying there, passed out, maybe too drunk to make it to the couch. Hey, I said, half laughing. You good? No response. Something cold slid down my spine. I dropped to my knees beside him. Ryan? I touched his shoulder. And that's when everything inside me went silent. He didn't move. His skin felt wrong. Not cold exactly. But not alive either. There was something dark on his shirt. Spreading. I stared at it for a second too long before realizing what it was. Blood. Too much of it. Way too much. No, no, no. The words came out like they didn't belong to me. My hand started shaking as I pressed down, like I could stop something that had already happened. Ryan, stay with me, come on, man, this isn't funny. My voice broke. I fumbled for my phone, nearly dropping it. 1. My thumb hovered for half a second. Then I heard it. A sound behind me. Soft. Sudden. Like a footstep. I turned. And for a split second, just a fraction of a moment, I thought I saw someone near the hallway. A shadow. A figure. Gone before my brain could lock onto it. Hello? I called out, heart slamming against my ribs. No answer. The apartment felt too quiet now. Like it was holding its breath. I stood up slowly. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But Ryan was on the floor. Bleeding. Dying. Or already. No. I couldn't think that. Is someone there? I said again, louder this time. Nothing. Just the hum of that flickering streetlight bleeding through the window. I took one step toward the hallway. Then another. My shoes stuck slightly to the floor. I looked down. A faint smear of blood. Not just around Ryan. Leading away. My stomach dropped. That's when the siren started. Distant at first. Then closer. Fast. Too fast. I froze. I hadn't even called yet. My phone slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a dull crack. For a second, I just stood there, covered in my best friend's blood, staring at a trail that shouldn't exist, listening to sirens that shouldn't be coming. And somewhere deep down, before the door even burst open, before the shouting, before the hands grabbed me, I felt it. That quiet, creeping certainty. Something had gone terribly wrong. And somehow, I was already part of it. The first thing they did was put me in the back of a police car. No questions. No explanations. Just hands on my shoulders, firm and impersonal, guiding, no, forcing, me into the seat like I already belonged there. Wait, I didn't, he's inside, he needs help. Sit down. The door slammed before I could finish. Through the window, I watched them flood Ryan's apartment. Red and blue lights painted everything in violent flashes. Officers moved quickly, deliberately, like they already knew what they were walking into. Like this wasn't chaos. Like it was confirmation. I pressed my forehead against the glass. I didn't do anything, I whispered. But even to me, it sounded weak. The ride to the station felt shorter than it should have been. Or maybe time just stopped making sense. My hands were still stained. Dried blood clung to my skin, cracked into the lines of my palms like it had always been there. I kept rubbing them together, trying to get it off. It didn't come off. They put me in a room. Gray walls. Metal table. One chair. No clock. No windows. Just silence. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Long enough for the shock to start wearing off, and for something worse to take its place. Fear. The door finally opened. A man walked in first. Mid-40s. Tired eyes. The kind that had seen too much and stopped caring. Detective, I guessed. Behind him. Her. My chest tightened. Emily? I said, standing up too fast. The chair scraped loudly behind me. She didn't respond. Didn't even look at me. Emily Carter. She'd been part of our circle for years. Not as close as me and Ryan, but close enough. Parties, group trips, late-night conversations that blurred into early mornings. She knew me. She knew me. What's going on? I asked, looking between them. Why am I here? I told them, I found him like that, I didn't. Sit, the detective said flatly. I stayed standing. Please, I said, my voice cracking despite my effort to hold it together. Emily, tell him. You know me. Tell him I wouldn't. That's when she looked at me. And I swear, I didn't recognize her. Her eyes weren't just scared. They were distant, hollow, like she had already made peace with something I didn't understand. He sexually assaulted me. The words didn't register at first. They just hung there. Meaningless. Disconnected. What? I let out a small, confused laugh. What are you talking about? The detective didn't move. Didn't react. Like he'd already heard it. Like he'd been waiting for it. Emily swallowed, her voice trembling, but her words came out clear. Earlier tonight, she said. At Ryan's place. He forced himself on me. No. It came out instantly. Instinctively. Like my body rejected the sentence before my mind could even process it. No, that's not, Emily, what are you saying? That didn't happen. You weren't even there when I. She ran out of the apartment, the detective cut in. Crying. Distressed. Witnesses saw her. My heart started pounding. That doesn't mean. And then, he continued, calm and measured, your friend ends up dead. I stared at him. Then at her. Then back again. You think I killed Ryan? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. No one answered. They didn't need to. That's insane, I said, louder now. He's my best friend. I would never. You had a motive, the detective said. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. Like the walls were slowly closing in. No, I said again, shaking my head. No, you're twisting this. Something happened, yeah, but not that. I walked in, he was all ready, there was blood everywhere, there was someone else, I heard something. Convenient, the detective muttered. I turned back to Emily. Tell them, I said, desperation creeping into every word. Tell them the truth. You know I didn't touch you. You know I wouldn't. Her gaze dropped to the table. She said nothing. And that silence? It hit harder than anything else. Emily. My voice broke completely now. Why are you doing this? She closed her eyes. For a second, I thought, hope she was going to take it back. Say it was a mistake. Say they misunderstood. But instead, she whispered. I was scared. The detective leaned forward slightly. Scared of what? She hesitated. Just for a moment. Then. Of him. Something inside me snapped. That's a lie. I slammed my hands on the table. You're lying. I never touched you, I never. Sit down, the detective said sharply. I didn't do anything. I shouted. You're making this up. Both of you, this doesn't make any sense. But even as I said it, I could feel it. The shift. The story was already forming. Already locking into place. A girl runs out of an apartment, shaken. A man follows later, covered in blood. A dead body. A convenient motive. Truth didn't matter anymore. Narrative did. And I was losing. The detective stood up. We're done for now, he said. Wait, no, you can't just, this is insane, you're arresting me based on what? A lie? He paused at the door. Look back at me. Based on what we have, he said calmly, it's enough. The door opened. Then closed. And just like that. I was alone. I sank into the chair slowly. My hands were still shaking. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get enough air in. I replayed it over and over in my head. Her voice. Her eyes. Those words. He sexually assaulted me. It didn't just accuse me. It rewrote me. And deep down, I realized something that terrified me more than prison. More than the murder charge. More than anything. No one was going to belie. The first time I saw Ryan's parents in court, his mother wouldn't look at me. His father did. And I wish he hadn't. There's a kind of hatred that doesn't need words. It sits in the eyes, heavy and unmovable, like a verdict already passed. That's what he gave me. Not anger. Not grief. Certainty. I wanted to stand up and scream. Tell him he was wrong. Tell him I loved his son like a brother. That I was the one who tried to save him. But I didn't move. Because by then, I understood something. It didn't matter what I said. The trial started 2 months after my arrest. 2 months of interrogations, of repeating the same truth until it sounded rehearsed even to me. 2 months of watching my public defender skim files like he was already preparing for a loss. Cases like this. He had said once, not meeting my eyes, they're about perception. Perception. Not truth. The prosecution opened with a story. Not evidence. A story. A young woman, the prosecutor began, pacing slowly in front of the jury, goes to a friend's apartment. Someone she trusts. Someone she believes is safe. He paused. Let it settle. But that trust is shattered. I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. She is assaulted, he continued, his voice tightening just enough to sound human, just enough to sound real. She escapes. Traumatized. Afraid. Another pause. And shortly after, the defendant, covered in blood, stands over the body of his best friend. There it was. Clean. Simple. Complete. A narrative you didn't have to question. My lawyer stood up for the defense. He talked about lack of direct evidence. About timelines that didn't quite line up. About the absence of a murder weapon tied to me. But even as he spoke, I could feel it. It sounded like excuses. Because stories beat facts. Every time. Then they called Emily to the stand. She walked slowly. Carefully. Like every step mattered. Like the room itself might break if she moved too fast. I couldn't stop staring at her. Waiting. Hoping. Maybe she'd crack. Maybe she'd look at me and remember who I was. Maybe this whole thing would collapse under its own weight. She sat down. Raised her hand. Swore to tell the truth. And then she destroyed me. Her voice shook in all the right places. Paused in all the right moments. Tears came, but never too much. Never enough to lose control. He sexually assaulted me, she said. There it was again. Clear. Direct. Unshakable. She described things, not in detail, but just enough. Enough to make people uncomfortable. Enough to make them believe. I trusted him, she added quietly. I thought I was safe. A juror looked down. Another wiped her eye. I felt sick. That's not what happened, I whispered under my breath. But no one heard me. The prosecutor approached her gently. After you left, he said, what did you do? I ran, she said. I didn't know what else to do. And how did you feel? Terrified. And when you learned what happened to Ryan? Her voice broke. I thought. Maybe it was my fault. The room shifted again. Heavier this time. And just like that. I wasn't just a murderer. I was a man who assaulted a woman. Then killed his best friend. A monster. My lawyer cross-examined her. Tried to poke holes. Were you drinking that night? Can you be certain of the timeline? Is it possible you misinterpreted? It didn't matter. Because every question made him look worse. Aggressive. Insensitive. Like he was attacking a victim. And Emily? She held steady. I know what happened, she said quietly. That was all it took. They brought in other witnesses. Neighbors who saw her running. An officer who described my agitated state. A forensic analyst who talked about blood patterns, but never definitively placed the weapon in my hands. There were gaps. So many gaps. But no one focused on them. Because the story was already complete. And then, they showed the photos. Ryan on the floor. Blood spreading beneath him. Frozen in a moment I couldn't unsee. I looked away. I couldn't breathe. That's your friend, isn't it? The prosecutor asked. I nodded, barely able to move. And you were alone with him? No, I said, my voice hoarse. I told you, there was someone else, I heard. Yet no one else was found. Because they didn't look. Because they didn't want to. The trial lasted 6 days. 6 days to dismantle my life. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. I remember standing there as they filed back in. My heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear through my chest. On the charge of second-degree murder. Everything slowed. We find the defendant. I closed my eyes. Guilty. The word echoed. Loud. Final. I didn't react. I couldn't. Because in that moment, it didn't feel like something had just happened. It felt like something had been decided long before I ever walked into that room. As they led me away in handcuffs, I caught one last glimpse of Emily. She didn't look at me. Not once. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. The first night in prison, I didn't sleep. Not because of the noise, though there was plenty of that. Metal door slamming. Distant shouting. Laughter that didn't sound human. It was the silence in between that got to me. The kind that leaves you alone with your thoughts. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, staring at my hands. They looked clean now. But I could still feel it. The blood. 17 years. That's what the judge gave me. 17 years for something I didn't do. 17 years because of a story that made more sense than the truth. At first, I kept thinking it would get fixed. That someone, anyone, would realize the mistake. That the appeal would come through. That evidence would surface. That Emily would confess. Something. Anything. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And eventually, hope turned into routine. Prison doesn't break you all at once. It erodes you. Slowly. Patiently. You learn the sounds first. Which footsteps mean trouble. Which voices to avoid. When to keep your head down. When to disappear. I wasn't built for that world. But I adapted. Because you don't get a choice. Hey, killer. That's what they called me at first. Not all of them. Just enough. Word spreads fast inside. Faster than truth ever could. I got into a fight my second week. Didn't start it. Didn't win it either. But I learned something important. You don't correct people in prison. You survive them. So I stopped talking. Stopped explaining. Stopped trying. Because every time I said I didn't do it, I saw the same look. Disbelief. Or worse. Indifference. Years passed. I marked them at first. Scratches on the wall. Counted days. But somewhere around year 3, I stopped counting. Because what's the point of tracking time? When time is the thing that's been taken from you. My lawyer filed appeals. All denied. Insufficient new evidence. Verdict stands. Case closed. Each rejection chipped something away. Until one day, I realized. I didn't feel anything anymore. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even fear. Just emptiness. I thought about Ryan a lot. Not the way he died. But who he was. The way he used to laugh, loud and unfiltered. The way he always ordered too much food and then made me finish it. The way he once drove 3 hours just because I said I was having a bad day. And every time I remembered him, it twisted something inside me. Because I wasn't just mourning him. I was carrying the weight of being blamed for him. That's a different kind of grief. There were nights I replayed everything. Every detail. Every second. The smell in the apartment. The blood. The shadow in the hallway. That shadow. I held onto it. Because it was the only thing that proved I wasn't alone. That someone else had been there. But over time, even that started to feel fragile. Like maybe I imagined it. Maybe my brain created it to protect me. Maybe. No. I refused to let that go. Because if I did, then there was nothing left. Year 10 came and went. Then 11. Then 12. Faces changed. Inmates transferred. Guards rotated. But I stayed. Frozen in a moment the world had already moved past. Then, in year 15, something shifted. It started small. A new inmate in the yard. Older guy. Quiet. Observant. We didn't talk at first. Just nodded occasionally. Shared the same space without acknowledgement. Until one day, he sat next to me during lunch. "You're the one from that case, right?" he asked. I didn't respond. "Best friend murder," he added. "Girl said you assaulted her." My jaw tightened. "Don't," I muttered. He studied me for a second. Then said something I hadn't heard in years. "I don't think you did it." I looked at him. Really looked at him. "Why?" I asked quietly. He shrugged. "Because I've seen guilty men," he said. "They don't sit like you." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. But because it was so simple. "You don't know anything about me," I said. "Maybe not," he replied. "But I know one thing." He leaned in slightly. "Cases like yours? They don't happen by accident." Something cold moved through me. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. He stood up, picking up his tray. "Means," he said, "someone wanted you there." And just like that, he walked away. I sat there, staring at nothing. Because for the first time in years, the idea didn't feel impossible. It felt real. And if it was real, then everything I thought I understood about that night was wrong. 17 years is long enough for the world to forget you. But not long enough for the truth to disappear. It just gets buried. Her name was Claire Donovan. I didn't know that yet. Didn't know that while I was counting cracks in concrete walls and memorizing the rhythm of prison doors, someone on the outside was about to trip over the one thing that could destroy everything. It started in a basement. Not the dramatic kind. No flickering lights or eerie silence. Just rows of metal shelves, stacked with old evidence boxes no one had touched in years. Cases closed. Filed away. Forgotten. Claire had been on the job 3 weeks. Fresh transfer. Detail-oriented. The kind of person who noticed when things didn't line up. Which, in a place like that, was a problem. "Hey, you can leave those," someone told her that morning. "Old cases. Cleared out next quarter anyway." But she didn't leave them. Because one box caught her attention. It was labeled wrong. The case number didn't match the shelf. The handwriting didn't match the rest. And the date was off by a day. Small things. The kind most people ignore. She didn't. So she pulled it down. Set it on the table. Opened it. Inside was everything you'd expect. Photos. Reports. Bagged items tagged and catalogued. And one small, unmarked evidence sleeve. No label. No reference number. Nothing. That's what made her pause. Because in a system built on documentation, something undocumented doesn't belong. She slipped on gloves. Carefully opened the sleeve. Inside was a memory card. Old. Slightly scratched. The kind used in cheap digital cameras, common, forgettable. Except for one thing. It wasn't listed anywhere in the case file. Claire frowned. Flipped through the paperwork again. Checked the inventory log. Nothing. Which meant one of two things. It was added by mistake. Or it was never supposed to be there. She glanced around the room. Empty. Then she made a decision that would change everything. She didn't log it. Not yet. Instead, she walked it upstairs. "Hey," she said to the tech at the desk. "Can you check something for me?" He barely looked up. "Depends. It urgent?" "Probably nothing," she said. "Just curious." He sighed, took the card, slid it into a reader. The screen blinked. Loaded. Paused. Then. Video files. Multiple. The tech leaned forward slightly. "Well, that's already weird," he muttered. Claire crossed her arms. "Why?" Because if this was logged, he said, clicking one open, we'd already know about it. The video began to play. Grainy. Low light, unsteady. A room. Familiar. Claire's breath caught. Is that, she started. Yeah, the text said quietly. Looks like a crime scene. Ryan's apartment. 17 years earlier. The timestamp flickered in the corner. And then. A figure moved into frame. Not me. Someone else. Claire stepped closer to the screen. Wait, she said. Go back. The tech rewound it. Paused. Zoomed in. The image blurred slightly, but not enough. A face. Partially visible. Clear enough to know one thing. This person had been there. At the exact time the prosecution claimed I was alone. Claire's pulse quickened. This wasn't in the trial, she said. No way, the tech replied. If it was, that case wouldn't have ended the way it did. She stared at the screen. At the figure. At the timestamp. 17 years. 17 years of silence. Undone by something that had been sitting in a box the entire time. How does this even happen? She whispered. The tech shook his head. Simple, he said. No one was looking. Claire didn't respond. Because she was looking now. And what she was seeing didn't just raise questions. It shattered everything. The first thing Claire did was lock the door. Not out of panic. Out of instinct. Play it again, she said. The tech hesitated. You sure? If this is what it looks like. Play it. The video restarted. Grainy. Shaky. Silent. But this time. They watched it differently. Not as a curiosity. As evidence. The camera angle was low, slightly tilted, like it had been set down in a hurry. Maybe on a table. Maybe knocked over. It didn't matter. What mattered was what it captured. Ryan's living room. Empty. For a few seconds. Then. Movement. A figure entered from the hallway. Not me. Claire leaned closer to the screen. Pause. The image froze. The figure stood partially turned away, shoulders tense, head slightly down. Clothing dark. Face obscured, but not completely. Zoom in on the timestamp, she said. The tech did. Numbers flickered into sharper focus. Claire grabbed a file from the box. Flipped through pages. Stopped. This says the estimated time of death was 9:42 p.m., she said. The tech nodded slowly. Claire pointed at the screen. Timestamp says 9:38. Silence. 4 minutes. 4 minutes before Ryan was officially declared dead. Someone else was in that apartment. Keep going, she said. The video resumed. The figure moved across the room. Fast. Agitated. Then. They knelt beside something. Ryan. Claire's throat tightened. Pause again. The tech froze the frame. The angle wasn't perfect. But it was enough. The person wasn't helping. They were searching. Hands moving quickly. Desperately. Through drawers. Pockets. The table. Looking for something, the tech murmured. Or taking something, Claire replied. They exchanged a glance. Then the footage shifted slightly. Like the camera had been nudged. And for a brief, crucial moment. The figure's face turned toward the lens. Not fully. But enough. Claire felt it immediately. That jolt. That recognition trying to form. Enhance that, she said, her voice tighter now. The tech adjusted the image. Sharpened what he could. The pixels resisted. But the outline came through. A jawline. A profile. A familiar shape. Do we have anyone on record who was there besides the victim and? He stopped himself. Claire didn't. The defendant, she finished quietly. But this wasn't him. It couldn't be. The height was off. The build was wrong. And the timestamp proved it. Play the rest. The video continued. The figure stood up. Looked around. And then walked directly toward the camera. Claire held her breath, the image filled with motion. Closer. Clearer. And then. Black. The recording cut out. Is that it? She asked. The tech clicked through the files. There's more. He opened the next video. Different angle. Same room. But this time. It started later. Timestamp, 9:46 p.m. Claire's eyes widened. Wait, she said. That's after. The door in the video opened. And someone rushed in. Frantic. Panicked. Covered in blood. Me. Claire froze. The contrast was undeniable. Two people. Two separate moments. Two completely different behaviors. One calm. Controlled. Searching. The other. Falling apart. Jesus, the tech whispered. Claire didn't respond. Because her mind was already moving ahead. If this footage was real. And it was. Then everything about the case was wrong. Not just incomplete. Wrong. She stood up abruptly. We need to log this, the tech said. Right now. Chain of custody, report. No. He blinked. What? Claire grabbed the evidence sleeve. Not yet. That's not how this works, he said, standing now. If this is tied to a conviction. 17 years, she cut in sharply. He stopped. 17 years, she repeated. And this sat in a box. Unlabeled. Unlogged. Her grip tightened. You really think that's an accident? Silence filled the room. Because they both knew the answer. No, he admitted quietly. Claire nodded. Exactly. She looked back at the screen. At the frozen frame of the unknown figure. Someone buried this, she said. Her voice dropped. And if we do this the wrong way? She met his eyes. They'll bury it again. The tech swallowed. So what are you saying? Claire didn't hesitate. I'm saying we don't just prove he's innocent. She looked back at the screen. We find out who made him guilty. And for the first time in 17 years. The truth wasn't just alive. It was coming. The first thing they did was nothing. No reports filed. No alerts sent. No supervisors notified. Because Claire was right. The moment this became official, it could disappear again. So instead, they copied the files. Twice. One stayed on the system. One went onto a secure drive. And one, Claire kept. Insurance. Where do we even start? The tech asked, leaning back in his chair, eyes still fixed on the frozen frame. Claire didn't answer immediately. She was already flipping through the original case file again, faster this time, more focused. Not reading. Hunting. Here, she said suddenly. She pulled out a witness statement. Dated the night of the murder. Neighbor across the hall, she said. Reported hearing two male voices arguing around 9:30 p.m. The tech frowned. That never came up? Claire shook her head. Not in court. She flipped another page. Here's another one. Different neighbor. Says they heard something heavy hit the floor. Then footsteps. More than one set. The tech sat forward. That lines up with the video, he said. Yeah, Claire replied. It does. She kept going. Each page revealing something small. Something subtle. Something ignored. Or buried. No forced entry, she read. So they assumed it had to be someone the victim knew. Which fits the defendant, the tech said. Or anyone else Ryan trusted, Claire shot back. He didn't argue. Because now. That was a much bigger list. Claire stopped at another document. Her eyes narrowed. What? The tech asked. She turned the page toward him. Initial responding officer's notes, she said. He scanned it quickly. Then slowed. Scene appeared disturbed beyond immediate struggle. Signs of search activity. He looked up. They knew? He asked. Claire nodded slowly. They wrote it down, she said. They just didn't follow it. Or chose not to. The room felt heavier now. Because this wasn't just about missing evidence anymore. This was about ignored evidence. Deliberately ignored. Check this, Claire said, flipping again. Forensic timeline. The tech leaned in. Estimated time of death, 9:42 p.m., he read. Claire pointed at another line. Defendant arrival estimated at 9:45 p.m., based on his 911 call attempt and cell tower data. The tech blinked. Wait, he said. That means. He got there after, Claire finished. Silence. But that wasn't how they presented it, he said. No, she replied. They said he was already there. That he never left, but the data was minimized, she said. Reframed. Or ignored. The tech leaned back, running a hand through his hair. This isn't just sloppy, he said. No, Claire agreed. It's worse. She stood up, pacing now. Think about it, she said. You've got a narrative. Assault leads to rage leads to murder. Clean. Emotional. Easy to sell. And then you've got reality, the tech added. Multiple people. Contradictory timelines. Missing pieces. Claire stopped. Which one do you think they went with? He didn't answer. Because they both knew. She walked back to the screen. Stared at the frozen image of the unknown figure. Run facial comparison, she said. The tech hesitated. With what database? All of them. He raised an eyebrow. That's not exactly standard? She cut in. He gave a small, nervous smile. Yeah. That. Claire didn't smile back. Neither is this, she said, gesturing to the screen. He sighed. Then turned back to the system. All right, he muttered. Let's see what we get. The software began processing. Scanning. Matching. Comparing. Claire crossed her arms. Waited. Seconds stretched. Then. A result. The screen pinged softly. The tech leaned forward. No way, he whispered. Claire stepped beside him. Who is it? He turned the monitor slightly. And that's when everything shifted. Because the face staring back at them wasn't a stranger. It was someone already connected to the case. Someone who had testified. Someone who had been in that courtroom. Helping build the narrative that put an innocent man in prison. Claire's stomach dropped. That's impossible, the tech said. But it wasn't. Because there it was. Clear. Undeniable. A match. Claire stared at the name on the screen. And for the first time, she understood the scale of it. This wasn't just a wrongful conviction. It was something deeper. Something intentional. She took a slow breath. Now we know, she said quietly. The tech looked at her. Know what? Claire didn't take her eyes off the screen. Where to start? And somewhere, miles away. Sitting in a prison cell he thought he'd never leave. The truth had just taken its first real step toward him. The first time I heard the name again, I thought it was a mistake. 17 years has a way of turning memories into ghosts. Faces blur. Voices fade. But some names? They don't fade. They wait. Sit down, my new lawyer said, sliding a file across the table. New. That word still felt unreal. For years, I had public defenders who barely looked at me. Men who treated my case like paperwork, not a life. Then, 2 weeks ago, everything changed. Where did you get this? I asked, staring at the folder. Let's just say, he replied carefully, someone finally started asking the right questions. I opened it. Photos. Documents. Still frames from video footage. My chest tightened. Because I recognized the room immediately. Ryan's apartment. And then I saw it. A figure. Standing where I remembered the shadow. My hands started shaking. I told them, I whispered. I told them someone else was there. My lawyer didn't respond. He was watching me. Studying my reaction. Keep going, he said. I flipped to the next page. A clearer image. Enhanced. Sharpened. The face wasn't perfect. But it was enough. And when my brain finally caught up with what my eyes were seeing, everything inside me stopped. No, I said. The word came out hollow. Empty. No. That's not possible. My lawyer leaned forward. You recognize him, he said. I didn't answer. Because I couldn't. Because the man in that image was Daniel. Daniel Reeves. Ryan's cousin. My friend. We grew up around each other. Not as close as me and Ryan, but close enough. Barbecues. Holidays. Random weekends that turned into memories. He was always steady. Calm. The reasonable one. The last person you'd ever suspect of something like this. He testified, I said slowly. My lawyer nodded. Yeah, he said. He did. I remembered it instantly. Daniel on the stand. Composed. Confident. I saw him earlier that night, he had said. Talking about me. He seemed off. Agitated. I thought he was helping. Giving context. Trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense. But now I saw it for what it was. He wasn't helping. He was building the case. He placed you at the scene, my lawyer said. Strengthened the timeline. Supported the prosecution's theory. My head started spinning. No, I muttered. No, he wouldn't, Daniel wouldn't. He was there, my lawyer said firmly, tapping the photo. 4 minutes before the estimated time of death. I stared at the image again. At his face, at the angle of his shoulders. At the way he moved. And suddenly, things I hadn't questioned before started shifting. That night, Ryan had mentioned something. Briefly. Casually. Daniel's been acting weird lately, he'd said. I hadn't thought much of it. Just shrugged it off. Now. It came back like a warning I never heard. Why? I asked, my voice barely holding together. Why would he do this? My lawyer leaned back. That's what we're going to find out, he said. But I already knew something worse. This wasn't random. It couldn't be. Because Daniel didn't just happen to be there. He didn't just stumble into the situation. He was part of it. From the beginning. And then another thought hit me. Harder than anything else. Emily, I said. My lawyer's expression shifted slightly. What about her? I looked up at him. She accused me, I said. She gave them the motive. The story. He nodded slowly. Yeah. My stomach dropped. They knew each other, I said. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. They didn't just know each other, my lawyer said carefully. He reached into the file. Pulled out another document. And slid it toward me. I looked down. Phone records. Messages. Dates. My chest tightened again. Because the timeline was clear. Emily and Daniel had been in contact. Constantly. Before the murder. After the murder. Even during the trial. No, I whispered. The room felt like it was closing in. This doesn't make any sense, I said. Why would they do this to me? My lawyer didn't answer right away. Because the truth? The truth was worse than I was ready for. Look at the last page, he said quietly. I didn't want to. But I did. And that's when I saw it. A financial record. A transfer. Dated 2 days after Ryan's death. From one account. To another. A large amount. Enough to change someone's life. My hands went cold. Who sent this? I asked. My lawyer's voice was steady. Ryan. I froze. What? He moved the money before he died, my lawyer said. To a private account. I stared at him. Why? My lawyer held my gaze. Because, he said slowly. He found something. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. And Daniel knew, I said. It wasn't a guess. It was the only explanation left. My lawyer nodded. We think so. Everything clicked into place. The argument. The search. The presence. Daniel wasn't just there. He was looking for something. Something Ryan had hidden. Something worth killing for. And when I walked in, I became the perfect cover. The perfect scapegoat. The perfect story. I leaned back in my chair. Staring at nothing. 17 years. 17 years stolen. Not by a mistake. Not by coincidence. But by people I trusted. People who smiled at me. Stood next to me. Testified against me. And walked away free. My lawyer watched me carefully. What are you thinking? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because the man I had been would have said something different. Something softer. Something broken. But that man? He didn't exist anymore. I looked up. Met his eyes. And for the first time in 17 years, I felt something real. Not grief. Not fear. Clarity. They took my life, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. It didn't break. They don't get to keep theirs. My lawyer didn't smile. But he didn't disagree either. Because this wasn't just about proving I was innocent anymore. This was about something bigger. Something deeper. Something that had been buried for 17 years. And was finally about to be exposed. The motion to reopen my case was filed 3 weeks later. And for the first time in 17 years, the system that buried me was forced to look at me again. I wasn't in the courtroom when it started. Not physically. But my name was. My case file. My conviction. And for once, they weren't untouchable. Newly discovered evidence, my lawyer argued. Material, exculpatory, and previously withheld from both the defense and the court. The judge didn't react. But the prosecution did. This is highly irregular, the prosecutor said, standing quickly. We need time to verify the authenticity of. You've had 17 years, my lawyer cut in. Silence. Because that was the part no one could argue with. 17 years. 17 years of a man sitting in a cell while evidence sat in a box. Unlogged. Ignored. Or hidden. The footage was submitted. Frame by frame. Timestamp by timestamp. The courtroom watched. The same room where I had once been turned into a monster. Now forced to confront something else. Doubt. Is that the defendant? The judge asked. No, my lawyer said clearly. And you can confirm the timestamp? Yes, Your Honor. It places another individual at the scene prior to the estimated time of death, and before my client's arrival. A shift. Subtle. But undeniable. For the first time. The narrative cracked. But cracks weren't enough. Because the system doesn't collapse easily. It protects itself. The prosecution pivoted. This doesn't prove innocence, they argued. At most, it introduces another person. It does not exclude the defendant. Convenient. Always convenient. So my lawyer did something different. He didn't just attack the evidence. He attacked the process. Let's talk about what wasn't presented, he said. And one by one. He laid it out. The neighbor who heard multiple voices. The officer who noted signs of a search. The timeline discrepancy. Each piece small. Insignificant on its own. But together? A pattern. Why, my lawyer asked, his voice steady, controlled, were these elements minimized or omitted entirely from trial? No answer. Because there wasn't one. Not a good one, anyway. The judge leaned back slightly. Watching. Listening. And then. The name came up. Daniel Reeves. The courtroom shifted again. Because now. This wasn't abstract anymore. This was a person. A witness. Someone who had helped build the case. And someone who was now. On video. Mr. Reeves testified under oath, my lawyer said, placed my client at the scene in a manner inconsistent with this footage. The prosecution stiffened. We would need to re-examine. You will, the judge said sharply. That was new. That was different. Because judges don't interrupt lightly. Which meant one thing. He saw it too. The problem. The risk. The possibility that this wasn't just a flawed case. But a compromised one. And that? That changes everything. The hearing lasted hours. Arguments. Counter-arguments. Technical challenges. Chain of custody questions. All of it designed to do one thing. Slow it down. Because the longer it takes, the easier it is to contain. But something had already shifted. Because this time, the truth had weight. Not just words. Not just claims. Evidence. Real. Visible. Undeniable. And the system? It was starting to feel it. A week later. The decision came down. I was in my cell when they told me. Pack your things. I looked up slowly. Why? I asked. The guard hesitated. Then said the words I had imagined for 17 years. Your conviction's been overturned. Everything went quiet. Not outside. Inside me. Like the world had paused. Waiting to see if I understood what that meant. Overturned, I repeated. The word felt foreign. Unreal. You're being released pending retrial, he added. Pending retrial. Even now. They weren't ready to admit it. But it didn't matter. Because the door was open. For the first time in 17 years. It was open. Walking out of that place didn't feel the way I thought it would. There was no rush. No overwhelming relief. Just space. Too much space. The sky looked different. Wider. Brighter. Or maybe I just wasn't used to seeing it anymore. My lawyer was waiting. You're out, he said. I nodded slowly. But I didn't smile. Because this wasn't the end. Not even close. They're investigating, he continued. Reopening everything. Internal review, witness reevaluation. Good, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. Because I wasn't thinking about freedom. Not yet. I was thinking about something else. 17 years. 17 years of my life. Taken. And now? Now they were scrambling to fix it. Quietly. Carefully. Like it was just another mistake. But it wasn't. It was a decision. A series of decisions. And decisions have consequences. I looked at my lawyer. They're not just going to admit this, I said. He shook his head. No, he agreed. Then we make them. He studied me for a moment. Then nodded. All right, he said. And just like that. This stopped being about proving I was innocent. Because that part was already happening. Now. It was about something else. Something bigger. Exposure. Accountability. And making sure that every single person who helped bury me had to face what they'd done. Freedom didn't feel like freedom. It felt like standing in someone else's life. The first night out, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't trust it. The bed was too soft. The room too quiet. No metal doors. No distant shouting. No schedule. Just silence. I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for something to pull me back. For someone to say it was a mistake. That I had to go back. But morning came. And I was still there. Free. Or something like it. The world had moved on without me. Phones were different. Cars were quieter. People didn't look at each other the same way anymore. And me? I didn't fit anywhere in it. Everywhere I went, I felt it. The looks. The whispers. Not everyone believed the headlines. Not everyone cared about new evidence. To some people, I was still the man who killed his best friend. And to others? I was worse. The man who got away with it. The retrial never happened. Because it didn't need to. Once the investigation widened, everything started collapsing. Daniel was arrested first. They found more than just the footage. Financial records. Hidden accounts. Connections Ryan had uncovered before he died. He hadn't just stumbled onto something. He had been digging. Into money. Into people. Into things he wasn't supposed to find. Daniel didn't act alone. That was the real twist. He was part of something bigger. A network. Not violent. Not obvious. But powerful. Money moving where it shouldn't. Names buried in places they shouldn't be. And Ryan? He found it. That's why he died. Emily was next. Her arrest wasn't as clean. She denied everything at first. Stuck to her story. But stories don't hold up against evidence. Not real evidence. Phone records. Payments. Messages. She wasn't a victim. She was part of it. Her accusation wasn't fear. It was strategy. A way to create motive. A way to control the narrative. A way to make sure no one ever looked deeper. The investigation didn't stop with them. It couldn't. Because once the case reopened, so did everything around it. Internal reviews uncovered things no one wanted to see. Evidence mishandled. Reports ignored. Decisions made too quickly. Not always out of malice. But out of something just as dangerous. Convenience. Closing a case mattered more than solving it. And I was the easiest answer. The state didn't apologize. Not at first. They delayed. Deflected. Reworded everything. But pressure builds. Media picked it up. Public opinion shifted. And eventually, they had no choice. Wrongful conviction. Official. Documented. Too late to matter. But enough to count. The settlement came months later. I sat across from a man in a suit as he explained it. This is one of the largest compensation agreements in state history, he said carefully. I didn't react. Money. 17 years of my life. Translated into numbers. It felt wrong. But I took it. Not because it fixed anything. Because it didn't. But because it meant something else. Control. For the first time since I was 19. I had control over my life again. I didn't stay in the same city. Couldn't. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. I moved somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one knew my name. Built something simple. A house. A routine. A life. But peace? That's different. You don't get that back. Not fully. Some nights. I still see it. Ryan on the floor. The blood. The shadow in the hallway. Only now. I know who it was. And that makes it worse. I visit his grave sometimes. Not often. Just enough to remind myself he was real. That this wasn't just a story. I didn't leave you, I said once, standing there. The wind didn't answer. It never does. 17 years ago. They took everything from me. My name. My future. My identity. But they didn't take one thing. The truth. They buried it. Ignored it. Tried to erase it. But it stayed. Waiting. And when it finally came back, it didn't just set me free. It exposed them. Every lie. Every shortcut. Every decision that turned me into something I wasn't. I used to wonder what I'd do if I ever got out. What I'd say. How I'd feel. Now I know. You don't get closure. You get clarity. And sometimes. That's enough.